Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Today we're chatting with Dr. Shanté Cofield, aka the Movement Maestro. In a previous life, Shanté was a physical therapist and really didn't enjoy it. She recognized that she wasn't living a true expression of herself, and so she left that career and started helping other movement specialists build their personal brands online, something she herself had great success with. As a business coach, Shanté's area of expertise is probably Instagram, but not in a hacking the algorithm kind of way, in a showing up authentically as you kind of way. Shanté's approach to business coaching is to help you live your absolute true best life. This is her guiding light, and in this episode, she offers up incredible wisdom to help you and us begin to cover what is important to us in our coaching practice, our business, and our life. Oh, and she does drop some essential pearls of wisdom as to how to best use your time on the gram, which I think you'll find really valuable. We love to see who's listening out there, so take a screen grab of your podcast player and tag us on Instagram at Health Coach Radio. By the way, the show notes for this episode can be found at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. At Health Coach Radio, we are all about raising the voices of practicing health, fitness, and nutrition coaches and helping to drive our exploding industry forward, which is why we started the podcast. Our show is proudly brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute, an approved educational provider with the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches, which means our graduates can become eligible to sit for the NBHWC credentialing exam to become a board-certified health and wellness coach. You can learn more about this at primalhealthcoach.com/level2. Right now, it's time to learn from the maestro. We know you're going to love listening. Please welcome our guest, Dr. Shanté Cofield.
All right, Shanté Cofield, welcome to Health Coach Radio. We're excited to have you.
Dude, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. We can't wait to pick your brain. You've been profoundly successful in this space, and I know there's lots of people that are going to want to just hear what you have to say and take some nuggets of wisdom back. So for those people listening who may not know who Shanté Cofield is, would you mind giving us a little background story, little origin story?
Thing. Once again, thank you for having me on. I love these kind of conversations. So stoked to be here. My elevator pitch 2-second story is I'm a physical therapist by trade, entrepreneur by choice. I went into physical therapy because I tore my ACL and decided I didn't want to go to med school. So kind of PT happened by default. I hated PT school. And I will be completely honest about this, I thought it was too easy. I had to work really hard in college, and going into PT school, instead of being like, hey, maybe this is easy for you because you're supposed to do it, I was just like, this is too easy. I don't really like this. Kind of second guessing that. Graduated, was a PT in New York City. Also hated that. Just the model, the turnover, just 20-minute sessions. And so I started questioning, like, am I helping people, or are they just getting better because I've been telling them for 6 weeks to stop doing what they love? So found my way into teaching. I taught for Rock Tape, which is it's a movement company, mostly known for tape, but they're a movement company that happens to sell tape and tools. And I taught for them. I was one of their lead instructors for about 5 years. And during that time, I built my brand, which is the Movement Maestro. And that started off as purely about movement in the traditional sense. And I strategically chose that name because I thought it would give me the flexibility. I'm all about options. So that's part of the reason I went to PT school, because I wasn't 100% sold on it, but I knew I could do other things. Mm-hmm. So I have commitment issues. Maybe some would say I like to flip that and say I like to have options, right? So went with the name The Movement Maestro, was really just all about movement, and built my brand through Instagram, and because I was traveling and teaching for Rock Tape. And then as I'm traveling the country, and actually became traveling the world, I started teaching my own courses, not just Rock Tape courses, and kind of answering the question of what do I do next? Right? I taught for Rock Tape, and people were like, I see that we can use these tools, we can use, but what next? And how do I know when to use it? So I solved the problem and created my own course. And while I was doing all this teaching, anytime I would go somewhere, usually the host that would bring me in, they'd want to have dinner. And it got to the point where we go to dinner and I would be like, so you want to leave your job? Before they would even say anything. And they were like, yes. So I started having a lot of conversations about kind of building your best life under the guise of kind of business and changing your business and starting your own business. And so actually last year in 2020, I made the official hard pivot to only doing business coaching and making that forefront. I was doing it probably since 2015, 2016, but it was kind of on the back side of things, like off the menu, and the PT movement stuff teaching was forefront. And so last year, hard pivot into this is all I'm doing because this is what I truly love. And now that is how I make my monies. I live in SoCal. I have a cat. I drive a green Jeep. I built a gym in my garage. And I can honestly say that I'm living my best life.
You do say that. You say that almost every single day on Instagram.
It's the truth.
It is. But what's really what I like about it and what I think you just shared in your story is that like this life by design idea also factors in what you do, because what you do is a big part of who you are. And it's like, it's really hard to live your best life when you're phoning it in at some
nailed it
job that is not an authentic expression of yourself.
Absolutely.
I know like one of your taglines is more you.
Yes.
So can you explain that to us? The more you philosophy?
I thought about wearing that shirt today, but just went with a different one.
Also the matching rock tape, branded rock tape.
Oh yeah, that was one of the things that's what happens when you're a lead instructor. They kind of hook you up. So
nice.
Good stuff. But Laura, you should know that my More You shirt, the M still has my logo.
I love it.
It's always branded. Yeah. Always branded. So More You, I actually spell it MOARU. And that happened because of Hunter Cook. Most people know him as Hunter Fitness on Instagram, but he used to say more like that in some of his stories. He spelled it like that. And I was like, that is a better way to spell it. It phonetically makes sense. And it kind of seems like roar, like it's bigger and it's better. So I borrowed that from him. And then a friend of mine from Instagram, James Olivia Chu Hillman, they have this whole concept that they talk about with more you is better, spelled the traditional way. And I loved the concept. And, in talking to them and learning from them, I was like, yes, this is ultimately what I look to teach people when I'm coaching them and working them through whatever vehicle it is, right? First, it was about movement. And that my whole stick with that. And that's why I love rock tape was that, movement is not singular. Movement is not that, objective, and that like, there's only one right way to do it. We're looking at the actual person and what they want to be doing and how their body is designed, and really looking to emphasize that. And then I went into the business space, or into really the Instagram space first off. And my whole shtick in there is authenticity. But I feel like that word gets just thrown around so much. People don't even know what it means, but people understand when you're like, more you. I want more of you. And so that has largely become a tagline. And so I would say it a lot in my posts. And then at one point, this woman, Kathy Sierra, who I'm in love with, she's just incredible. She is Panther Flows on Instagram. She's had like success across she started out in the movement space actually years ago, like years and years ago, and then went into the like online programming space, and now is in the horse space. So yes, I was like, Erin.
Wow. Yeah, that's that horse lady that I follow now. Jeez.
Exactly. So I had, brought on the podcast and we became friends. And so I did a post once and she was like, this needs to go on a shirt. And I was like, if Kathy Sierra says something, you just do it. There's no like, what about? You just do it. So I made some shirts and people love them. And, I was talking to James. I asked James Olivia first and I was like, are you cool with me putting this on a shirt as more you? I don't want you to feel like I like, copped your idea. And they were like, no, absolutely. And it was so cool to see people not just wearing the swag, but what they chose to buy. So I was like, let me put this in any color that you want, because it's about you. It's not just a black shirt, whatever color you wanted to be wearing. And I also included some crops. I don't wear crops, but I know some people like them. And the number of people that message being like, I never wear them, but I wanted to start wearing them. And so I got this. And I was like, that is amazing.
That's awesome.
That is more you. So this whole thing, and, that's where it stems from. And the whole, underlying overarching theme is just that authenticity and literally showing up and learning to be more confident in showing up as more you.
Mm. Oh my gosh. This is
I love that. And Erin and I talk to coaches all the time, right? Part of what we do with our program. And when we hear from coaches, to your point, all these reasons why they can't move forward and everything that's holding them back, we keep trying to say, for example, here's the big one. Like, there's already people that have come before me that have done this.
Oh, sure.
What can I add to the conversation? And it's, I don't know, what can you add? It's you, to your point, the more that you can inject into your approach to this. And by the way, everybody out here that's doing this is working on borrowed stuff too, stuff that they
100%.
learned and heard from somebody else. And all of that's okay. It doesn't have to be an original idea. You're the originality that you're bringing to the table.
Spot on. I read somewhere a quote that said, if you think you're the first person to say something, you just haven't read enough. And I was like, that is really good. And it's the truth. It's not about coming up with these novel. I would actually offer, for the coaches that are out there, the more novel what you're saying, the slower it's going to grow, because people don't understand it then. Like, what resonates with people, and the things that, if we talk about Instagram, things that blow up on Instagram, it's because they're common. And so they're, relatable, and people can understand it and digest it. When you come out with something, they're like, no one's ever said it, then no one's probably going to like it, because they're like, I don't know how I feel about this thing yet. I don't know it yet. So it's not at all about doing something that's never been done before. It's about doing it in your way, and that's going to resonate with other people.
Actually, gosh, I've never thought of it that way. But when you think about Instagram, the sort of the highest commodity on Instagram would be the share button, right? Because then whatever you post is being shared to other people. So if you post something really esoteric, that's just like this super novel concept that somebody has to really wrap their mind around, like, they're not going to mash that share button. It's not going anywhere. Like, you basically just did it for you in your own tiny echo chamber.
That's totally it. So I think that there's like the balance there is that, one, if you have something that you're like, I need to get this out because it needs to exist. So much value in that. More you put it out. But in terms of meeting your clientele where they're at, this kind of, I'm borrowing this from Kathy Sierra, we do want to look at reducing cognitive leaks. So if someone has to like really think about this thing, it's called Instagram. If people have to like go research to understand it, they're probably gonna be like, but also maybe I'll read that later / never. So there is something to be said about elevating the conversation, but we do it in a digestible way. We meet people where they're at. Maybe every now and then, not even maybe, yes, every now and then we pepper in things that are a bit more esoteric, a bit more like, truly from my own brain, this thing that I just need to get out there. And then we manage our expectations about it, because people will be like, I worked so hard on this post and then only got 1 like. And it's just like, it needed to go out there. Post and move. We're on to the next thing. And then you keep saying stuff so that it's, in different ways, so that it isn't so unfamiliar to people. But understanding that if you're coming at something that is just so foreign from what we traditionally understand, it's not wrong, but you manage those expectations, that's definitely going to grow slower than, booty blaster, whatever you want to, I'm sort of out there. It's true.
No, that's so true though, because I think the more people you have echoing a message, maybe a bunch of different ways, the faster it's going to grow. If you really 100%. Think about pioneers in any space, it wasn't an instantaneous uptake by any means. It was a handful of people that are like, wow, I've never heard that before. That kind of makes sense. I think I'm going to research it a little bit more. And then maybe I'm going to try it myself. And then I'm going to talk to my neighbor about it. Yep. But so it can grow, but to your point, a heck of a lot slower. And we've got all these coaches that are graduating from a program. They spent a few $1,000s on it, maybe more. And they're anxious to get out there because, to your point, they want to leave their job yesterday.
Yeah, totally.
So trying to build something and create a message that is too unique could be counterproductive to this versus I think I think the uniqueness, again, to not to beat a dead horse, is coming from you and how you express it.
That's it. That's totally it. So if you from the jump are just like so passionate about this thing that is super unique, then go ahead and run with it. But if you're sitting there thinking about trying to make it unique, that's when you're going to be counterproductive. Like, just talk about what you know, solve problems. It's literally it. Solve problems. And the more universal that problem, the more customers you'll have, the more, the more eyes will understand or gravitate towards this message. So it's not, I'm not telling you to go be like everyone else, but I am saying, don't worry about having, a problem that you solve that other people also solve.
Right. Well, one thing that you shared a moment ago, and I jotted it down when you said it, was this idea of showing up and learning to be more confident in showing up, which is kind of like they're the same, but different a little bit. Showing up is one thing, but just the confidence piece is what really lacks. And this is kind of the whole post and move thing, rather than post and overanalyze.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Or the other way around, overanalyze and then just never get around to posting. I just feel like, we always get asked questions from our students in our school, because we host these educational webinars and they're kind of Q&A style. And every single month it's like, how do I grow my following on Instagram? How, and this is in the same realm as how do I find clients? So how do I find clients? The answer is, well, they have to kind of find you. And when they find you, what are you saying? What have you been saying this whole time? Right. So what we find is that people are very unconfident.
Yeah.
I'm not good on video. I'm not a good writer. I don't know what to say. I don't have a good picture. And what I like about you, Shanté, is that you're like, just post it anyway.
That's it.
I mean, are we just borrowing confidence from the future?
Building confidence. That's it. You're building it. It's different, right? Confidence comes from doing the thing. Confidence is a byproduct of action. It comes after the fact. So I think people want this super complex, like, system methodology for gaining confidence. And I think they want it so that they have an excuse to not do the thing. Yeah. When in reality, it's literally do the thing. The confidence comes after, but they're like, no, I'm going to go read a study about it and then take a course about it. And I'm like, okay, but also you could do both. Do the thing, right? Confidence is a byproduct of action 100 times over. It never comes before. It doesn't.
Let's bold it, underline it, put it in italics and exclamation points. We talk about this all the time, especially as it relates to anything. Stop collecting certs.
Oh, man.
Pick a good one, get one good one, and then run with it. You can always then fill in as you're going with, you know what? I'm finding I'm trending this way. I find this interesting. Then you're doing it to just legitimately learn something, to bring something of value to your clients rather than getting started. But as it comes to just being a good coach, and I would argue this is in any realm, being good at anything takes practice. And confidence comes with doing. We talk about this all the time. So we need to underline that, bold it, italics it. So I have a question for you. Why Instagram in particular? Was there something about Instagram that drew you there as a platform?
Yeah, it's nicer. Plain and simple, it's nicer. So my first post was on September 24th, 2014. So I'm not like super OG with Instagram, but that was the platform. TikTok didn't exist at the time. Facebook Facebook was good in my opinion when like it first started. I remember I was in college when Facebook first started, and it was just for people in college. Like you had to have like a college email, and then you could see on the side like other friends you had that went where they went to school, and that was it. And I was like, all right, this is fine. But really, Instagram was the only option. Like YouTube existed, but I was like, I'm not trying to make it long ass videos. Like, I don't have time for that. So I chose Instagram largely because I, at the time was, I had just finished running, like I was running marathons, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. Like, this is not really that fun. And when I was training for the New York City Marathon, I would run by this CrossFit box that was down the street. And so when I finished, I was like, all right, I'm going to start doing CrossFit, because a lot of the patients that I had coming in did CrossFit. And I was like, let me do the things that my patients have issues with, so I can like know more about it. And in doing that, I wanted to learn more, right? It was my first exposure. Like I had done Olympic lifting and like more, heavier lifting during college. Right? I played soccer in college. So I was exposed to that, but CrossFit's different. And I was just like, how come that person can do that thing? I'm a Division I athlete. I can't do that thing. What's going on? Right. Or former Division I athlete. And so I was like, I want to learn more. And what led me down the rabbit hole of more was Instagram. So, pair CrossFit. And then I'm a physical therapist, and I was just looking for just a bit more in that world. And I found Perry Nicholson, and like literally the rest is history. But started because of that, and wanting to go and do more. And that took me down the Instagram rabbit hole. And I saw K-Star, so Kelly Starrett and Wad Doc at the time doing videos. And literally I was just like, I could do this. And now I know in saying that people are like, wow, that's confident. I'm like, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of tying into what you had said before, like some people are born with more confidence. It's a nature nurture thing, right? And how you're brought up. And some people, my mom is amazing and like never told me I couldn't do something. I also was kind of inherently good at things that society valued, good at sports, I was smart, good in school. And so like I gained that confidence. But for folks that are listening and they're like, well, it's easier for you, I would say, so what? What are you going to do? You still have to go and do the thing. Like, just because something is harder for you doesn't mean you're just like, we're going to sit and complain about it. We all have our own inherent strengths and advantages. And if you're so focused on everyone else's, you'll never see your own. So yeah, it was easier for me. I never really felt weird on camera. My videos early on weren't great, but also we only had 15 seconds. It's come full circle on Instagram. We only had 15 seconds to do a video when you're first starting. And so I was kind of like, I saw K-Star doing it. I saw Wad Duck doing it. And I was just like, I can make a video about this. Like, I didn't have any goals to like become the movement maestro or have an online brand. I was just looking to connect with people, put my ideas out there, maybe help some other CrossFitters at the time. They didn't pick me, thank God. But that was kind of my goal, my initial starting point. And yeah, that's why I picked Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram is easy. I was just listening to Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, and he's a behavioral, was he scientist? Behavioral something guy. And the dudes who invented Instagram were in his class in
awesome
college, and he taught them like, here's how people behave when they're on their phones and when they don't, so the filter thing, it's all great. So going back
can I say one thing?
Yes.
And it speaks to what both of you had said, and Laura, just like, get started and solve a problem. And then you're going in a different direction. That's what happened with Instagram. So Instagram, if any of you remember, it started off as a platform designed to put filters on pictures.
Right.
And the reason it started off like that was because it didn't have filters at first. It was just a platform to share photos. And then the main guy, his girlfriend wasn't posting a lot on Instagram. And he was like, why are you not using this thing that I've created? And she was like, my photos aren't as nice. If you could make something on this that like I could make my pictures nicer, I would be more inclined to do it. So solving problems, you get started and you're solving problems. And that's what happened with Instagram. He put filters on it and suddenly everyone was like, look at me. Yep. And it's evolved into, the behemoth that it is today, but it speaks exactly what you said of like, get started, solve the problem that you can solve. And then maybe it takes you in different directions as you go, but you don't have to like get 15,000 certs beforehand, right? You don't have to pay for solutions to problems you don't have.
Yeah. Well, when you were kind of sharing how you came across Kelly Starrett in the Wad Doc and you were like, oh, I can do this. And the stuff wasn't necessarily good right out the gate, but you had enough confidence to post it anyway. One of the things is like, guys, no one's looking anyway.
Exactly.
Like,
literally.
Like, you don't have a following. So what is the worst case scenario if you post something dumb?
That's the funniest thing, because people in the same breath, right? They'll start off and be like, man, nobody liked it. I posted this thing. And in the same breath, they're like, but I'm scared to post because someone might see it. And I'm like, you just told me no one's watching. You just told me like, no one's watching my stuff. I'm like, that should be the confidence to be like, do it because no one is watching. I love that you brought that up, Erin. I love that.
Well, I love that you brought up this whole idea, like this notion that confidence is practiced or comes as a result of action.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we teach that to health coaches, literally. Okay, never mind. Everything works this way. Everything in the world works this way. You get good at what you practice, period. And
that's it.
You feel like a weird, like the first time I tried snowboarding, guess what? I fell on my ass a lot.
That's it. That's it.
So granted, I gave up because I don't
I
like
think
being
that
outside in the cold.
Exactly. I think there's so much value in that, Erin. I believe that society champions the struggle way too much. I think that suffering and struggling are choices. And usually it stems from borrowed goals. So this is not more you, that's less you. When you're doing something because society told you're supposed to do it, or your wife told you're supposed to do it, somebody told you you're supposed to do this thing, you should do this thing. And so that's why you keep doing it, even though you suck at it. Yeah. Right. There is a difference between not being good at something, but like seeing that you have potential in it and just like beating your head against the wall. I have no problem with people being like, this ain't for me. And I'm like, good, get out of here. Like CrossFit, not for me. I am 127 pounds on my best day. The barbell is always heavier than me. And I was like, this is not really the activity for me. I stayed in it for like the gymnastics side of things, but I wasn't like, I'm going to try and compete and like be really good. Cause I was like, my body's going to break in half. I started beach volleyball last year. I'm not super tall, but for the level I play, it doesn't matter. But I have the athleticism and the court awareness from years of other sports. And I was like, I have potential in this. I'm going to double down on this. And I enjoy the environment. Like, which is what you said. Like, I feel like, snowboarding and things like that, it's great in theory. I don't really like the cold. So I'm like, I'm planning this trip while I'm on my warm sofa. I'm like, it's going to be great. And then you're like on the ski lift and you're like, this is actually terrible. And I fell 3 times. So I think that that's a great point of try it, get started. And if you're just like, I hate this thing, figure out why. Is it because it's really not your goal? Right? Is it because someone else told you to do it? Is it because maybe you do just need a little more practice? Figure that out and then proceed accordingly.
Yeah. That's a great point. So I have a follow-up question to that. What do you say to, because this comes up for me a lot of times when I'm talking to potential people that are potentially looking to become a health coach, and they think that in order to become a health coach, they have to spend all their time on Instagram, social media, and they hate it. They're like, I don't even have an account. I don't want to be on there. Is this like a requirement? Because if that's the case, then like I'm out. Yeah.
So to that, I will say 2 things. By the way, I have a whiteboard next to me. That's why I keep looking over here. It's just, otherwise I will forget my train of thought because I like to talk a lot. So number 1, I always ask people, why do you hate it? And so many people think they hate it because they're like, there's trolls and bad people and negative side. And I'm like, that's everything. So have you been trolled? Did somebody say something to you? And they're like, no, I don't even post. I'm not even on there. And I'm like, so where did this come from? Like, all right, cool. I get that that's a concern, but let's also realize that that hasn't happened yet. The second part of that being, do I have to do this to have a successful business? If you want an online business, it is a big part of it where the eyes are going to be, but I will contend that every online business, especially like a personal brand, starts in person.
Yeah.
It starts offline. So you develop those skills offline. Your first clients and customers, whenever you have a business, are going to be your friends and family. So one of the analogies that I use, I don't know if, do either of you watch Sex and the City? It's like one of my favorite shows, right? So in that, one of the episodes when Samantha is like trying to help Smith Jared like launch his career, right? He has like a billboard up on like a bus stop and these little girls run over and they're like, Smith Jared. And in it, right, she says, first come the gays, then the girls, then the industry. That's how the growth happens. For our businesses, it's first come your family, then your friends, then unfamiliar faces. It's the exact same. So whether that happens online or in person, it's usually going to be in person because your family is in person, your friends are in person, and then you can move that skill set, move your messaging into the online space. If you want an online business, yes, you have to be in a place where the eyes are, but to have a business in general, no, you don't have to be on Instagram.
Right. Well, let's go down the Instagram path further. What kinds of things should people be posting?
Solutions. It's literally it. Solutions to problems. So I believe that there's 3 different categories for posts, right? We have informational posts, we have opinion posts, and we have engagement related posts, 3 different categories. If you're trying to have a business, right? Businesses are built on solutions to problems. They're not built on your opinion. So you need to solve problems. So that's going to be that informational category. And that should be the bulk of what you're posting. So for me, this was actually really easy because I started on Instagram as a physical therapist. And I was just like, I'm going to post all the stuff I did today. I'm going to post the exercises I did with my patients that I really like. I was starting Instagram. I was starting CrossFit. So I was like having all pains because that's what happens when you do new things. Like my wrists were like sore for 4 months. And I was like, is this normal? What's happening? They were fine after that. But I was like, I'm going to just post about that. I'm going to solve that problem. So when you're first starting, that's all you need to be posting. People get really caught up in, is it going to break the algorithm and all its nuances? And it's literally just post solutions to problems. The other issue that I see though, is that in what Instagram has become, and there's a lot of like quote cards on there, which are awesome. So you see like a lot of tweets that are being used as Instagram posts, because I do believe that the majority of the demographic on Instagram is visual learners. So posts that have text will do well, quote unquote do well. But those things, those tweets are largely opinions. And so you may be able to grow a big following behind your opinion, but I'm very certain, not even feel, I'm very certain you will have a tough time monetizing that because you haven't solved a problem. So you do want to put your opinion into things and do have some posts about this because that is more you. And that's what helps separate you from somebody else. But you need to be consistently providing solutions to problems. That's it. If you're trying to have a business.
So information, opinions, and the other one was engagement posts.
So an engagement post is purely to get people to engage. And now an opinion post could be an engagement post, right? Like I did a tweet the other day that was basically like, you don't have to meditate or jump in a cold lake or, have a journaling practice to have first thing in the morning in order to have a good day. That's my opinion. But I also knew that would I was not surprised that got a lot of traction because it's kind of universal and that I know not everyone wants to do that. So that's more of like an engagement related. And I could have had I did a call to action in the caption that was like, what do you do for your morning routine? Or what do you do in the morning? That was largely just to have engagement and to interact with the people. So engagement posts, they're just designed for solely that, for engagement. I think that those should be lower down on the totem pole there, right? The informational post at the top, but that's what an engagement, like all those, it's a fine line. So right, reels are huge now. And by huge, I mean, Instagram's pushing them. Like, it's not that they're like better. Instagram does what it wants. And I will say, I don't mind that it does. It's free platform. It's somebody else's platform. Like, it can't be all like, damn it, Instagram. It's free. I'm not paying to use this thing, so they can do whatever they want, right? So they're pushing reels because they want to compete with TikTok, which I think is so dumb and so foolish. It's 2 totally different user bases there.
Right.
But reels are doing well. And what I see people falling into the trap of is just trying to be funny and relatable. That doesn't build a business. Right? Lead with your expertise. Right? If we're gonna look at if I'm gonna like audit someone's posts and say like, is this what I think is effective? I want to see comments that say, I needed this today. I found this helpful, as opposed to me too. There's a difference. Because if people are saying me too, then you're on the same level as them. Think about your own purchasing habits. Are you going to go pay someone for them to tell you something that you're already doing and you already know? I need that person to be ahead of me. I need them to demonstrate expertise. So it's totally fine to do reels, but I need people sharing information, sharing wins, sharing things that people can get wins from in those reels. You can do some funny ones, absolutely. But if that's the bulk of your content, because like we said earlier, right, that will grow faster because it's universal. It's easily understood. There's a reason that, the Kardashians have huge accounts. It's entertainment. But I'm trying to build a business. So I'm not looking for that big entertainment piece at the top. I'm looking to demonstrate expertise.
Yeah, when those reels came out, I was like, I don't even know how I would build. And I found them mildly entertaining in the beginning. Now I just flip through
Of
them because
course.
there's nothing of
Exactly.
substance in there.
You nailed it. You nailed it. You're just like, this is not helpful for me. So if you're listening to this and you're like, but I love reels, go ahead and keep doing that. I want you to enjoy your time on there. Just think about what you're delivering
Right.
on there. It doesn't have to be a skit or a dance. It can be, but also make sure that you're solving problems and establishing yourself as the expert. I will say that I firmly believe that in terms of, advertising and marketing, men and women do it differently and are expected to do it differently. Women are taught to lead with relatability. Men lead with expertise. And now I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I am going to say that if both demographics have experienced success, then we know that either strategy works. And what I look to coach people to do, especially my female clients, is lead with their expertise. More you take up space with that. I see so many women cutting themselves down in order to like kind of soften their message and be more relatable. And this is where I'm like, let's elevate the conversation and bring people up to here, as opposed to cutting yourself down in order to, be more palatable for people.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I saw that in my old career all the time. I was in a very male-dominated industry, and the female wholesalers, first of all, there weren't that many. And the ones that were the most aggressive, the ones that were exhibiting behaviors and patterns and having conversations that were more like the men, were deemed aggressive.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
And I was having a conversation with one of them one day. Her name is Brenda. Tremendously successful person. She did not shy away from asking for the sale. She did not shy away from saying, this is why I think I deserve your business. She didn't shy away from any of those things, but there were people that just didn't like her, sure. and some were fellow wholesalers, probably because they were a little jealous. Some were clients, but you know what? The clients that did like her loved her.
That's it.
Loved her. And they were huge advocates for her, and they referred people to her. And she was tremendously successful. And she's the person who told me, you don't need everyone to love you. But you just need enough, you need a few people to really love you. You don't need, she's like, your biggest mistake. She told me, because I was struggling a little. She's like, your biggest mistake is you're looking for everyone to like you.
There you go. Yeah. And that is, that's Kevin Kelly's, 1,000 true fans there. Mm-hmm. But I think the add on there is you need a few people to love you for you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I get it. Anyone that's listening to this and you're like, but I want people to like me. I do too. Like, I'm not some like sociopath that's like, I don't care. Like, that's scary to me, honestly. I do care about, I want people to like me, but I also want them, more than that, I want them to like me for me, which is what I encourage people to focus on. And when they do that, they start to see how good it feels and how much easier it is. Cause they're like, I don't have to like look to like massage this message and like say it in a way that is, I'm struggling to say it. Like, because it's not your word. You're trying to think of it like, how would Erin say it? She's going to say it how she would say it. You need to say it how you would say it. And if you listening to this are just inherently more of a, you are more about the relatability. That's how you like to lead things. That's totally fine. I just want to make sure that those of you listening to this know, especially, women out there, that you can absolutely lead with your expertise. Like, there's a podcast episode. I think it was an NPR podcast episode. This was years ago. And it was 45. I made a Facebook group off of it, and it was called P45 to 0. And so P standing for project, and 45 to 0 came from the episode where it was talking about the number of male presidents versus female presidents, 45 to 0. And basically the take home message that I gleaned from it was, for many women, they're going to think you're a bitch either way. So you might as well make some money and live life the way that you want to on your terms. Yes, it will inherently be harder for some women than others. This is a conversation that Jill and I have. So I know you know Jill Fitt. Right? Mm-hmm. And I know that when it comes to saying things like this and showing up, I have it easier than her because I look like this and she looks how she looks. And I know that women are inherently going to be a bit more intimidated by her, and they're going to feel some kind of way. And so this ties back into my message before where, yes, some people have it easier. What are you going to do about that? all you can do is show up. And so I'm always honored. I'm like, let's elevate that conversation. Let's lift people up. You're in an incredible position now to do that. So if you listen to this, know that like that's you, and you're like, people just tend to think I'm, harder. Maybe you could just have like stronger features. Like you could have like I'm looking at Aaron. You have like a stronger jawline and more refined features. People already are going to treat you differently than if you have like a rounder face and they treat you more like a kid. That's the cross to bear. And then it becomes, what does more you look like? Aaron said earlier, life by design. Like, what does that look like for you? Because ultimately that's going to end up being the easier path. It may be a little bit more rocky in the beginning, but at the end of the day, it becomes far easier.
Yeah, I like church to that. And I feel like, we talk to coaches who have maybe graduated from us at school and they're ready to go, which I love that energy. Like, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. How do I grow? How do I build? How do I find? And, I've often shared the anecdote with our students and graduates. Like, the first thing I did was I typed the letters off a keyboard of my MacBook. I use all the time. I still have the MacBook. There are no letters left on the keys. I typed them off, creating my programming. And it feels like spinning your wheels because you're not delivering the program to anybody. There's nobody paying attention to you yet, but that time is going to pass anyway.
That's it.
So
that is it.
People
don't realize that.
I know, right? Well, I mean, as a health coach, how many times have I gotten on a discovery call with somebody who wants to lose weight? And I'll say, what if it takes 6 months to lose 20 pounds? It's not fast enough. It's like, but the time's going to pass anyway.
Are you dying in 3? Because then, okay, we can talk about it.
But this instant gratification culture, and I think that's, people are a little bit not shy to build things, but just, what is the word? Not shy. What is the aversion to building things, do you think, that people have?
I think that I like that word, aversion. It is because we, in my opinion, I said that so like declarative. Like, it is because, in my opinion, it is because we as humans are so loss averse, right? So all of the things I do, like, they tie together, and much of what I think now came from my physical therapy background and just like learning about the nervous system. Right? That book came out, Born to Run. I will say, we are not born to run. You see some people outside and you're like, you're not born to run. You should probably walk.
Stop running.
You should probably be walking right now, right? But we are born to survive. Your nervous system is always seeking safety, right? Whether that's, in the nutrition space, and like, this is why you can't lose weight, because your nervous system, your body doesn't want to die. Or we talk about it in movement. This is why you can't lift that weight, because your nervous system doesn't feel safe. It's not going to let you do that. Same thing happens in business and taking chances, is that we are so loss averse, meaning we focus exponentially more on what we've lost than what we've gained. And this is just a built-in habit for safety. Get it. But if you have the ability to celebrate your wins more, or just as much as you mourn your losses, you will change your life. Because suddenly you have instead of being like, 6 months, it's going to take so long, Jesus, you can flip that and be like, man, there's a lot that I can do in that time. But it's because we're so scared of wasting time because of that, being so loss averse. And just as a society, as a species, that's what we do. I believe that we can train that and work on that. And then get out of that, which is, again, what part of the things that I talk about on Instagram, and the messaging I do, and the coaching I do, is getting people to celebrate wins every day, and getting them to actually view things as wins. Like, they'd be like, oh, but I had to do that. And it's like, the fact that Erin typed the letters off of her keyboard, that's a huge win. Look at the commitment that took, the dedication that took. Whereas if someone's a writer, they'd be like, of course they did that. And they don't view it as that. But, if one bad thing happened, they will remember the fact that, like, one time my computer closed and I didn't save the document. They will remember that more than the fact that, like, you wrote this whole thing, you typed the keys off your computer. Yeah. So if we can get people to start viewing the wins, celebrating the wins, being able to identify the wins, we change that.
That speaks to us, because we love talking about things through the evolutionary lens quite a lot. I was thinking about a conversation I had yesterday. I hosted a webinar with our student body, and a gal came on, and she was sort of hemming and hawing about how far behind her website was because she didn't have a booking tool. A huge fan of booking tools, like,
yes,
come on, those things are great. I said, okay, tell me about your website. Well, I've got this landing page and I've got my about me, my bio thing. I've got a contact form. That's kind of all I've got. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Right.
That's actually all you need. Like, it was like, let's hook that thing up to your web domain that you bought. And she was like, I'm not going to hook it up to my web domain that I bought until I have my booking form and I can't figure out I'm like, no. You start now. You'll have that thing hooked up in 5 minutes and you're off to the races. And it was so wild how this was such a barrier for her. And I feel that we are wired to be loss averse. So, or risk averse, whatever it is. But so one way of doing this, celebrate the small wins. And I think the other way of managing that is to, how am I going to say this? Like, we talk about this all the time, Laura, like, let's not leap into this. Like,
oh yeah.
Tiptoe into it.
Risk mitigation, like one step at a time.
I love that burn the ships model. Burn that model. I think that's terrible. Yeah. People like, I get it. You folks listening to this, you like want to leave your job. Don't do that, because then you're going to be homeless.
Yeah.
I don't want to be homeless. That's terrifying. All right. And then we introduce urgency. And when you introduce urgency is the enemy, you introduce urgency and you start making really, really bad choices. Whereas if you're like, all right, I got my side hustle and I'm just doing a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. That's my story as well. You do this little side hustle until at some point you're like, okay, I have to like not do as much as this other thing because I don't have the time. And typically what you'll find is actually, I was talking about this last night, one of the coaching calls I held. It's actually I'll say a better model to do this, because if you quit your job, all right, let me back it up. As I love that you talk about this primal lens, right? This evolutionary lens, right? Pain is the greatest motivator we have by far. Yeah. The greatest motivator we have. So if you quit your job, you've actually taken away this pain, all right? This pain point. You're like, I hate this thing. All right, I'm going to get rid of it. So suddenly you don't have that same kind of impetus that like, I have to get away from this thing. You start to introduce another pain, which is not great, because the other pain is like, I have to pay bills. And now we have this urgency. And so you start making bad decisions or less than ideal decisions. They're not going to move you towards your goal, because you're like, I just need to like move away from this pain. Whereas if you keep that job while you're also building the other job, you get a constant reminder of like, oh, I don't really like this thing. I don't like these clients that I have. And that's actually going to really spur you to build your own thing, because you have this constant pain point there of like, I don't really want to be doing this, so let me do more of this. And it's a healthier, in my opinion, pain point to have. So I am all about the baby steps. I am all about the tiny steps. Tying back and circling back to what Aaron said, this stuff takes time. People ask like, how long does it take? I'm like, as long as it takes. If you need a number, gauge your progress for anything in terms of 18-month spans. But this takes literally as long as it takes.
Yeah. Again, so risk averse, loss averse, this is something we talked about back in my old career, was in finance. And the fact of the matter was, people will take a risk to avoid a loss. They will. So loss aversion, sense of pain are the biggest drivers of behavior and motivation. And so when we think about whether it's coaches looking afraid to make a decision or take a step, one of the things you need to stop yourself from doing is focusing on just one loss, because there is a loss on the other side of that coin by not taking the step. And this, I hold this conversation with my clients as well, my health coaching clients, me perhaps afraid to invest in the program with me, or afraid to invest in, or to try something new. Well, what if I don't like it? Okay, then you don't like it. All right. You at least learn something from that.
It's a win.
Yes, but on the other side of that coin. So I think it's important for coaches to consider, as far as their own behaviors and working with clients, is there's always a potential for loss on the other side. And we need to kind of view both of those things and then have conversations about how you can take that step without taking a leap and giving things a try.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, that's the decisional balance grid, right? Decisional balance grid is like, we all know the pros and cons list. But the decisional balance adds a second layer to that. So it's pro of doing this thing, con of doing this thing, pro of not doing this thing, con of not doing this thing. And that second layer of the pros and cons list is like, damn, it's crazy how enlightening it is.
I love that. And just asking people to go a little bit deeper with things instead of just being like face value, shoot from the hip, knee-jerk reaction. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
You have a really, I find your coaching style very, I don't know what's the word, like refreshing, or it's just really real. So I did work with you in a coach client kind of capacity, or my coach for a while there. And I remember one conversation we had. I'm sure you don't remember because you talked to a lot of people. Maybe you do. I don't want to slight your memory short of our conversation, but I came into this conversation and I was going on about some aspect of my personality.
I do remember.
It was Gretchen Rubin's. So what am I? I'm the what am I, Laura? We're the same.
Yeah. Enabler. No.
No, the obliger.
Obliger. Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, we were talking about what we were talking about. And I said, well, the reason I kind of do that, I'm like an obliger type. And you said, listen, I don't know what that even means because I never read that book. But if you're an obliger, aren't you obligated to yourself too? And I was like, ah.
Yes.
She got me.
Yeah. I do remember this conversation. I just wrote it down on the thing. I do remember this conversation.
You know what? That's so true. There's so many clients that fall into this. Well, I'm and it gives them a pass.
Moderator, abstainer, or whatever.
Exactly. From doing the one thing they're afraid of, or that's seems like a lot of work or whatever. It's, well, I am insert whatever description.
Those things, I'm not going to lie, they drive me crazy. My girlfriend's all about like astrology stuff. And she's like, it's because I'm a Virgo. And I was like, immediately, nope. Immediately, no.
Preordained.
You have a choice here. You get to choose the next things. Maybe you are predisposed towards this. Get it. But you have a choice. Are you going to do this? You have self-awareness, and then we can go and do the next thing. I love that you said it gives people a pass. And you're like, do you want this thing? Okay, then you have to do the work. There's like, it was one of the things I tried to talk about and say with my coaching and with my Instagram stuff is just like, things don't have to be that difficult. It's actually phenomenal when you have a goal, because it just limits your options. You're like, my option is to do the thing that's going to get me forward. Like there's literally nothing else you can do. I feel like it's like a very Chuck Norris thing. Like this is what are you going to do? All the things that I got to do to get to the point that I want to get to. There's nothing else. Yes, we take it a step back and make sure it's an actual goal of yours, not a borrowed goal, but it's just like, do you want it?
Yeah.
And do whatever it takes to get it.
Yeah. Do you ever find when you're working with clients that, I mean, we talked about this earlier, but they're bringing in like what would appear to be distraction techniques. Like, well, first I have to buy this tool, and first I have to get this logo sorted out. But first,
totally. So
yeah,
yes.
like you're grabbing by the shirt collar and saying you don't need a logo.
So what I will say is, if you find that you are attracting, and I specifically use that word, attracting people that are not ready, that are uncertain, and you don't like working with them, that's your fault. I actually don't get a lot of clients like that. I have none right now off the top of my head that are like that. And I'm very strategic with the messaging I put out, because I'm like, I'm not here to go debate you on this. You told me you have a goal, so we're going to do it. So how I show up in my own marketing and living my own life is it very intentional. And I'm like, this is what I do. So people come in already knowing, like, I'm not going to sign up for this call because Shanté's probably going to say something that hurt my feelings. Or they're like, I'm ready to do this. So I do very much understand that, because that was some of the clients I used to get. And I'm like, that's my own fault. Right? I'm either being too soft with my messaging and like being like, oh, this is okay. And then of course people are going to, because they want to, people, you know this, right? People pay for coaching because they think, some people will pay for coaching because they think that is doing the thing. They're like, I paid. And I'm like, you have to like do it still. Like that's not actually like a substitute for the work.
Right.
And if I'm attracting those people, and that was part of the people I used to get at when I was doing physical therapy, because that wasn't my own marketing. That was part of the pain point that made me leave. Because I was like, these people don't even want to be here. They're here because the doctor told them, or their wife told them, like, they don't even want, I don't want to be doing this. So coming out of that and having my own business, I was like, this is what I need to be marketing and how I need to be showing up and advertising, so that I don't get that demographic that isn't ready and, isn't really ready to do the work yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
We teach that a little bit in our course too, or we've talked about it. Like, people are really worried about sales, but it's like, how do I overcome objections? And it's like, I don't really get any. Like, by the time I get on the phone with somebody, they already know they want to work with me.
That's it.
People who are ready it's not a sales conversation.
That's it.
So it's, so I guess you could do one of two things. You could be open to having those conversations and see if you can move that person closer to the needle, but is that a good use of your time? Or you could really just, from to your point, get that messaging out there in your marketing now, that this is who is going to find success and be successful by working with me. These attributes, this is kind of where you are, and if you're in this, because here's the other thing that comes up with people like, I'll be having a conversation with someone, insert family member, usually. And I can't change their mind. I can't get them to do these things. And I'm like, it's because they're not ready for change. You can't judge your own ability as a coach to not change someone who doesn't want to change. I'm sorry, doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way at all. This is the beauty of what you both said before, those little steps. If you've quit your job and you have no money, suddenly you have urgency, right? Urgency is the enemy. And you're like, I need every single sale, even if that person's terrible. And then you end up just hating what you're doing and you hate your side hustle. And you're like, I'm going to go back to my original job because at least I know I could make money and not be, starving. So when you don't, quit your job, when you take these small steps so you can remove that urgency, it allows you to show up in such a way that you actually don't need the sale. So I know that there's like a methodology of like, act like you don't need the sale. I'm like, actually don't need the sale. Get to a place where you actually legitimately don't need it. And you're going to be amazed at how many you sell. Erin nailed it. And she was like, people get on the phone with me and I don't have objections to overcome because you've spent enough time marketing, showing up. I call it second chance sales, right? If you don't get someone the first time, it's because, they weren't ready. Keep showing up. That person's going to come back around. Maybe it's a few months later, maybe it's a year later. I don't know, but it will be in a better place and it'll actually be fun to work with them and they'll actually get the results. And then they'll do the marketing for you because they're going to go and tell other people or just show up and look different. People can be like, what did you do? And they'll be like, I work with Laura. I work with Erin. You need to go do this thing too. All right. So, it all 100% ties together. 100%. Yeah. That's also why I don't really like the really aggressive, sales tactics and language that's used and like a lot of urgency that's placed in sales and things like that. They're not like, I'm not saying like you're morally wrong if you do that, but one of the things I see happening is that you end up attracting customers and clients that aren't ready. And that is more work. So you make a sale up front, but you kill yourself moving forward.
Yeah, it's the worst. And all of this makes a case, everybody, for starting with some content efforts, because this is what lays that path ultimately to your discovery call. Like, how do I find clients? They have to find you and they have to like you and trust you. And not everybody's going to, and that's okay, because you only need those, that small, viable audience. Seth Godin's, the other guy that you mentioned, 1,000 raving fans. But if they find you and you've got nothing, they're not mashing that book a call button because they don't know if
that's it. They don't. Just like think about your own purchasing habits. Like I love that you're talking about, right? You don't find clients, you attract them. It's attraction marketing 101. But think about your own personal, spending habits and trust habits. Like you want something there. You want to get small wins. Like remember when the samples at Costco were a thing? That's like not a thing anymore, but they were. And that was that small win that you would get before. You're not going to go buy the Costco size thing without trying it.
Right.
You tried it somewhere. You got a small win somewhere. And then it went to the next level. That's exactly what we're seeing, with social media, with email marketing. So I personally believe that if you want to have an online business, you would be best served by having a social media presence, by having an email list, because you don't own social media, and having a podcast. This way you hit the different learning styles and you hit the different format styles where you can have long form content and short form content. You have audio stuff with the podcast and you have visual stuff with social media. And then you can give people these small wins. It's not for free because you're asking them for their attention, but financially it is free. And you can move them up this value ladder and sell other things because you've built the trust, you've got them the wins, and they're like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah. Gosh, I can't believe we've already been talking for an hour and we haven't even talked about email marketing. Darn it. Because I know that
I'm here.
Your voice is always in my head when I sit down to kind of plan out my content efforts for the week. Because I'm still sliding my health coaching business in amongst a full-time job that I love. Yeah. So it's like Mondays are kind of the day where I plan out my content and like, okay, Instagram posts, okay, I can do this. And then it's like, email your people. And I put it in my calendar. Email.
Email your people. Email is not dead for folks that are like, I heard that, I read that somewhere. You read that probably from someone who was like, you need a podcast because email is dead. And you're like, that's probably why they said that. Like, it's usually a both and thing. Email is great because does allow, if you like writing, there you go. If you like that long form, you can have a place for it. And it's the only thing that you actually own, quote unquote, in terms of contact with your people. Like if Instagram dies, right? If your account gets hacked or whatever, what are you going to do? You're just going to be like praying, like have a backup here, have these people on. And it's not just like have a list, actually engage with this list, because if you have it, but you don't do anything with it, you don't have it. They're not going to open your stuff. They're not going to read your stuff. So I think it's incredibly important. If I could go back and do something, start something earlier, it would be an email list for sure.
So do you have kind of any thoughts as far as content? Like, would it differ at all for what you might put towards social media versus a video versus like a podcast or video thing or versus a long form email? How would you?
Totally. I love that you said, do you have any thoughts? I have a million thoughts all the time. I have a microphone. I'll never shut up. So in terms of what goes where, if you're in my opinion, if you're a good coach, you can put anything anywhere. You can say anything in any way. And you should challenge yourself to do that because a once is never. I borrowed that from Julie Angel. She's a PhD in parkour. Wow. So that comes from the parkour world. Once is never. So for those of you familiar with Gray Cook, one of the reasons he is such a good educator is because he can say things in so many different ways and have so many different analogies. And that allows you to appeal to and meet more people where they're at, right? Appeal to more people, meet more people where they're at. So all the content should go in all the places in all the different ways because people learn differently and they need to hear it 1,000 times anyway before they're actually like, I understand it. I'm ready to hear this thing. So I don't, look to contain people and be like, well, this goes on here and this goes on here. I challenge you to say, how can I deliver this message on here? How can I deliver this message on here? Same thing goes for all the different types of, post types on Instagram. Like, can you say this in a reel? Can you say this as a tweet? Can you say this as a video? Can you say this as an IGTV? Can you do this as an IG live? You don't have to come up with all these different kinds of content. You just got to be able to explain it in these different ways and with these different parameters.
Actually, to go back to reels, which we touched on earlier, and which I hate. The one thing I will say, the day that Instagram declared we're now a video sharing app, I was like, damn it! And I went out and I said, okay, I'm going to do a reel today. I'm going to do a reel today, but it's not going to be corny. I'm just going to go and teach something. I'm going to teach something. Here's what I liked about it. I had to art direct that. I had to figure out, I'm going to take this clip, I'm going to put this text, I have this many seconds to get this whole teaching message out. I actually like that. I think that's pretty cool. And all I did, to your point, Shanté, is I took one of my posts that kind of had some pretty good traction and I just kind of like sliced and diced it.
That's it.
And made it into a reel.
That's it. Like people will think of ways to make this harder than it needs to be and then complain about it. Instagram announced that as like a video platform. And I was just like, yeah. And like, what are you going to do? We don't own it. So you can waste all your time being like, but I hate it. Or you can see it as an opportunity to be like, all right, well, let me see what I can do. And that's it. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I mean, Erin knows, like, social media for me, it started out just keeping in touch with high school friends and sharing pictures of my kids. And I want to see pictures of your kids. And then I started the first blog post I ever wrote, I sheepishly posted it to my personal page. And then and it was terrible, and they're still terrible. But so I take that back. Stop putting myself down.
There you go.
But,
I was like,
but to be fair, the onus goes on me that I really have not gone out of my way to learn how to use it effectively because I really haven't had to in the past.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. Which I'm like,
right. I haven't had to in the past, but things have changed. I moved from Illinois to Florida. I am no longer in my gym all the time and I'm getting to know a new community here. And I really need to look at this as an opportunity to learn how to do this better.
That's it. And I get it. There's so many things that when you start it, the ROI seems very low.
Yeah.
It seems very like far in the future. And this ties into what you had said before of like taking small steps and having these other things that you can celebrate so that this thing can grow organically and you can just let it be, over time. I really believe folks understand inherently the value of social media, especially the demographic that came from Facebook. And they did exactly what you said, where like, I wanted to have my kids up there, like see other people's kids. So, inherently that there can be connection established through a social media platform. Mm-hmm. You already know it. People do it. Right. And then I have to like argue with them. I'm like, please only have one account. And they're like, but what about Aunt Susan? Like, you're not paying your bills. So maybe you just have this one. Right. So people know inherently that you can establish connection through a social media platform. I do think that 2020, it furthered that because everyone had to go online and they were like, actually, this isn't that bad. But this ties back into those people that never wanted to give it a chance. And they just let the resistance, right? From Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art. The War of Art. Yeah, The War of Art. Where they just let the resistance overcome and win. And they're just like, but it could be bad. And I've heard that there's trolls on there. And I'm like, but you also post every day about your kids. So that it can be really good. And that there's value in it. So now you have an opportunity to go and do it and perhaps now create connection for your business. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. And about the trolls. So first of all, who are they? Who's likely to be following you? And stop trying to talk to other experts in your field. They're the ones that are the most likely to disagree with you. Talk to the people you're trying to serve. They're not going to troll you. They'll ask you a question.
You nailed it. That is who, if you're ever going to get a troll, it is going to be a peer. Mm-hmm. That is 100% it. And I think it's super important what Laura just said about remembering that your peers aren't your customers, unless you're like, I'm a coach that teaches coaches. But yeah, for the most part, if you're going to B2C, business to consumer, and you're looking to help general population, the language you use needs to be different. It needs to be something that's digestible and understandable and not just something that's going to kind of feed your ego in terms of I know that my colleague's going to think I'm smart because of this. I get it. I get wanting to start like that because you're like, I want to be liked. People would rather have a community, right, than be right. Mm-hmm. They're like, they don't want more facts. They're like, I want more friends. I get it. But if you look in the long run, if you look in terms of having the business, right, we need to be thinking about who are the people that I serve and let me show up for them.
Yes. I have an anecdote to share that is along those lines. So one of the ways I had kind of worked through this in my own head was I'm basically writing letters to my ideal client when I write a post. Mm-hmm. And I had, I think I mentioned to you, Shanté, I'm not sure if I did, but there's a gal who is does the same thing as I do, almost exactly, it's crazy. But she has this huge following because she had one celebrity client. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I need one celebrity client. And I even had the celebrity in mind, kind of maybe not D list, maybe more like L list. She's working her way up. She's fairly well known. Anyway, one day I opened my Instagram and she's following me. The celebrity that I had in mind, my avatar client, celebrity client, is following me suddenly. So what did I do? The first thing I did is I opened up my notes app and I was like, I know what she needs. I know what her pain points are because I've been following her on Instagram and I know what she's struggling with. I'm going to write this post to her. Mm-hmm. And I did. I wrote this post to her. I know you're struggling with XYZ. I know that this is what what's keeping you awake at night. I know that you have big plans for your life and and it was one of the most authentic posts I ever wrote. I don't know if she saw it. She's not working with me, and I was like, I just literally have to apply this formula to every post.
That's it. That is it. And I love that the word you used there was, this is one of the most authentic posts, not relatable posts. Mm-hmm. This is one of the most authentic posts. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And how easy it comes out too.
Yeah. I guess the takeaway is imagine if your ideal client followed you right now and what would be the next post you'd post? Just kind of always do that.
Totally. For folks that are like, I don't know who that person is. This ties back into get started.
Right.
Right. You have to go and put stuff out there and solve problems and work with some people and then learn what isn't your ideal client you'll learn then what problem you want to be solving, who you want to be working with, and then you move from there. So if you're like, I don't know, then just think of something, think of someone, make it up, start there. And then, just like Instagram did, just like Laura was talking about earlier, you end up in different directions and suddenly you're like, this is where I want to be. This is who I want to be working with. Yeah. But you have to have the confidence to do that.
We'll often tell people, if you don't know for sure, think back to talking to yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and start there, because you know yourself, you know what you needed, what helped you. It's a great place to start. Doesn't mean that that's where you'll land. My husband oftentimes works with teenage soccer players, little girls, and he's a 40-year-old dude. So, and you know what? He likes them better than some of the boys because they work harder. He's like, it's bizarre.
I mean, is it bizarre though?
To him it is, because he wasn't like that, but I think he's found on the margin, because he used to do some trainings, strength training and then skills training for one of the travel soccer teams back where we used to live. And he worked with both the boys and the girls. And he's like, the boys were the whiners. Yes. They were the ones that complained. The girls all worked hard and they worked. It was just a different, it was,
absolutely. I'm
dynamic.
Different, like 0% surprised. 0% surprised.
I feel
0% surprised.
I mean, up on the boys.
It's not. I think that's a comment on society. Like, women are they know you got to work harder if you're trying to get the same thing. That's that you tie back into the 45 presidents to 0. Like, you got to work harder if you want the same thing. You can complain about it, or you can get to work, and then hopefully the next generation, next people don't have to do that. That's where we're at.
Yeah,
it's a power move. Oh my gosh, so much wisdom. Thank you, Shanté. There's a million more questions.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So you're a biz coach, and who do you work with?
Clients?
Yeah.
Clientele wise? I'm usually looking at health and movement professionals that are looking to, and I say this first and foremost, build a community. That's how you future-proof your business. They're looking to build a community in the online space and deliver online services. That is who I work with.
Okay. Well, we have lots of those folks listening. So let's do the roundup as to where people can find out more about you.
Sure. The easiest place is Instagram. On Instagram, I'm The Movement Maestro. Maestro is spelled Maestro. I will say, if you're coming up with a name or logo and it's like, I want to have a logo. All right, cool. Then just do it. Get started with it. Don't be so concerned if you're like, but it's hard to spell and all these other things. Just get started. People will figure it out. If you make your stuff so good and you get those results for people, they'll figure it out. I read a quote once, and it was the woman from one of the actresses from Orange is the New Black. And she had said that, from her mother, like, her name is difficult to pronounce. And her mom was like, people figured out how to say Tchaikovsky. They'll figure out your name. And I was like, that is amazing.
Touche.
Right? So I was like, all right, like, go forth and be the best. So easiest place is Instagram. I'm The Movement Maestro. Website is the same, The Movement Maestro. All the things are there.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you for all your wisdom bombs.
Dude, thank you. This was a phenomenal chat. Fired up. This is great.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.
Well, if you've been listening at Health Coach Radio, you'll know that we're all about raising the voices of practicing health, fitness, and nutrition coaches, but most importantly, helping to further legitimize this exploding industry. Erin and I have disclosed often that we're on the faculty of the Primal Health Coach Institute, founded by none other than the health and wellness legend Mark Sisson. And we've interviewed dozens of guests from just about every different health coaching program you can think of, and who practice in just about any conceivable way you can think of. But our allegiance is to the health coaching industry in its totality, first and foremost. It's our desire to continuously and unapologetically lift and promote this industry that nudged us to create this podcast for you in the first place. It's this same yearning that encouraged us to take the educational offering at our health coaching school to the next level. We are so proud to offer the Primal Health Coach Level 2 certification course, which, when combined with our primary course, the Primal Health Coach certification course, not only satisfies the educational requirements to sit for the board exam, but is specifically designed to teach advanced coaching mastery. You will work closely with a small class of peers through this 12-week, very intensive, live online classroom experience to learn how to execute a coaching relationship that is truly transformational. You'll learn and practice how to ask powerful questions, what it means to hold space for your clients, but most importantly, how to actually do it. You'll learn about the craft of motivational interviewing and the nuances of habit change, goal setting, and accountability, and how to nurture your client's own inner knowing, their intuition, and their own self-efficacy, so that they will graduate from your care a truly transformed person. You want a big, successful, powerful coaching practice. And maybe you're devouring our episodes looking for the silver bullet that's going to launch your business into the upper echelons. We've said it a million times and we'll say it again. Your coaching skills are what will make or break you and set you apart for success in this field. So if you're looking to level up your coaching skills and maybe dial up your credential and become a board-eligible health coach, look no further. You can learn more about PHCI's Level 2 program at primalhealthcoach.com/level 2. But if you would value talking to a real person about your path to being a masterful coach and perhaps a board certified coach, book some time with me personally. You can access my calendar at primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or just call me. You can reach me at 844-307-7662. Thank you for listening to Health Coach Radio, and I hope I get to talk to you soon.